You work hard, you build things up, maybe a career, a home, you start a family, put some money aside, and then that thought pops up. Right. How do I make sure all this stuff, and really the people I care about, are looked after, down the road? And there's often this gap, isn't there, between thinking about it and actually having a solid plan. That's where estate planning comes in. And it's exactly what we're diving into today. We want to get past the vague idea and really understand the nuts and bolts. We're using insights from attorneys Jonathan Haskell and Matthew Dyer. They run the law offices of Haskell and Dyer, and they specialize in this, specifically in Southern Maryland. We're talking Anne Arundel, Calvert, Charles, St. Mary's, and Prince George's counties. So our goal, let's unpack what they highlight about this area of law. Pull out the key takeaways so you feel, well, more informed and maybe a bit less intimidated by it all. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's do it. And fundamentally, estate planning, its purpose is pretty straightforward, even if the details can get complex. Like the attorneys emphasize, it's really about creating a kind of blueprint for your future. It ensures your legacy, how you want to be remembered is preserved, that your loved ones are cared for exactly how you want them to be, and that your final wishes are actually followed. It takes experience, sure, but also compassion to guide people through these big decisions.
Okay, blueprint for the future.
Yeah.
Caring for loved ones, that sounds crucial. But why is it so important? I mean, beyond just wanting to protect things, why can't I just, assume it'll work out? Or maybe just jot down a note somewhere. What does formal planning actually achieve?
That's a really good question. It hits right at why this isn't something you should put on the back burner. The attorneys, Haskell and Dyer, point to 4 key benefits that really show its value. First up is clarity.
Clarity.
Yeah. Without a clear written plan, what you wanted can easily get misinterpreted. And that can lead to, well, confusion, arguments, even really painful legal fights among family members. And that's the last thing anyone wants during a tough time. A solid plan avoids that ambiguity.
So basically, it helps prevent family fights.
In large part, yes. It clearly states your intentions, which minimizes that potential for conflict. The second benefit they stress is asset protection.
Right, protecting what you've built. How does estate planning do that?
It's about shielding your assets from things that could, eat away at them unnecessarily. This could mean strategies to minimize estate or inheritance taxes, or avoiding that long, often expensive court process called probate, or even protecting assets from potential creditors, depending on the specific tools used, like certain trusts. It helps make sure more actually gets to your beneficiaries.
Okay, that makes solid financial sense. What about the emotional aspect? Does having a plan help there?
Oh, absolutely. And that brings us straight to the third benefit, peace of mind. There's a huge sense of security, knowing you've done what you can, you've taken steps to make sure your family, your beneficiaries are provided for, whatever happens. It's a real act of care.
I can see that feeling of having your affairs in order. And the fourth benefit?
Efficiency. A well-thought-out plan makes the whole process much, much smoother for your heirs after you're gone. When there's a clear roadmap, assets can usually be transferred faster, with less paperwork and hassle compared to, well, the mess that can happen without a plan. Sometimes that can drag on for years.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. You connect these 4 things: clarity, protection, peace of mind, efficiency. It shows this isn't just ticking legal boxes, is it? It's like laying a foundation for your family's future, making sure your legacy actually happens the way you envision it. They all seem linked.
What's fascinating here is exactly that, how they work together. Clarity helps make things efficient. Asset protection gives you peace of mind because you know things are safeguarded. And you feel that peace because you've addressed the clarity and the protection parts. It's really a whole package for securing not just money, but, well, peace for the people you leave behind.
Right. So if estate planning is like drawing up this legacy blueprint, what are the actual tools in the toolbox? What do attorneys Haskell and Dyer typically use to build these plans?
Well, they use a range of instruments tailored to this situation. The core ones they mention are wills, trusts, living wills, powers of attorney, guardianship designations for kids, and tax planning strategies.
Okay, lots of tools there.
Yeah, think of them as the specific instruments the architect needs to draw that detailed blueprint.
And they really emphasized wills and trusts, call them foundational documents or the cornerstone.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between a will and a trust? How do they fit together?
Good question. They are definitely central. A will is probably what most people think of first. It's your main document saying who gets your assets when you die, and it names who's in charge of making sure that happens, your personal representative or executor. It's vital. But, as the attorneys point out, trusts can offer, well, more sophisticated control and some really key advantages.
Advantages like, what can a trust do that a will maybe can't?
Well, trusts can offer potential tax benefits, which is a big one, especially in Maryland, as we'll see. And critically, they can often help assets avoid that probate process.
Okay, you mentioned probate before. What exactly is probate? Why avoid it?
Right. Probate is the formal court process. The court validates your will, makes an inventory of everything you own, pays off any debts and taxes, and then oversees distributing what's left. The downsides: it can take a long time, sometimes months or even years. It can be expensive with court fees and lawyer fees. And importantly, it's a public record. Anyone can go look up the details of your estate.
So not very private.
Not at all. Trusts, on the other hand, can manage and distribute assets privately outside of that court supervision, and often much faster. Plus, trusts give you way more control over how and when assets are given out. Say you have young children, or maybe a beneficiary who isn't great with money. A trust lets you set conditions or spread payments out over time.
Okay, I think I'm getting it. So a will says who gets stuff, but a trust can control how and when, plus maybe save taxes and keep things private by skipping probate.
That's a great way to put it. They often work hand in hand. Sometimes a will is used to pour assets into a trust that you set up. It's all about choosing the right combination of tools for your specific situation and goals.
Right, makes sense. Now let's talk geography. Haskell and Dyer practice in southern Maryland. They asked, what makes estate planning in Maryland different? I guess I assumed laws were pretty similar state to state.
Yeah, that's a common thought, but it raises a really important point. State laws matter a lot. And Maryland has some unique features. One of the biggest distinctions, which the attorneys highlight, is taxes. Maryland is one of only a handful of states that has both an estate tax and an inheritance tax.
Well, wait, both? How are those different? I thought they were the same thing.
Nope, they're distinct. And it's crucial. The Maryland estate tax is a tax on the total value of the person's estate before anything is distributed. If the estate value is over a certain threshold, the tax applies. Then separately, there's the Maryland inheritance tax. This one is paid by the beneficiaries based on their relationship to the person who died and what they actually inherit. Spouses and direct descendants are usually exempt, but siblings, cousins, friends, they might have to pay.
Wow. Okay, so you could potentially get hit twice. That definitely sounds like something you need specific advice on.
Exactly. Navigating both requires careful planning to minimize the tax bite, both for the estate itself and for the people inheriting. Many states have one or the other, or neither. Having both makes Maryland unique.
What else is specific to Maryland, besides the double taxes?
Well, there are other things, too. Maryland has its own specific rules about who can even serve as the personal representative, the person managing the estate. There are very precise requirements for how a will must be signed and witnessed to be legally valid, get that wrong, and the will could be useless. And there are nuances in Maryland law about how trusts need to be set up and managed, and how different types of property pass to heirs. These aren't just small details. They can make or break your plan.
Okay, so getting that state-specific expertise sounds absolutely critical then.
It really is.
So let's say you go through all this, you work with someone local, you get this great plan, this blueprint put together. Is that it? Are you done? Or do you need to, revisit it?
That's another key point they address. It's definitely not a set it and forget it deal. Life changes, laws change. There's no single magic number for how often, but the general advice is to review your plan maybe every 3 to 5 years. But even more importantly, you absolutely need to review it after any big life changes.
And what counts as a big life change in this context?
Well, the obvious ones. Getting married, getting divorced, having a baby, or adopting a child or maybe grandchildren arrive. Sadly, a death in the family, especially a spouse or beneficiary named in your plan. Also, big financial shifts, maybe you buy or sell a house, start or sell a business, inherit money, or your overall net worth changes significantly. Basically, any major change to your family, your assets, or even just your goals for the future means your old plan might not work anymore. It might not reflect what you actually want now.
And it's not just our lives changing, right? You mentioned laws.
Exactly. That's crucial, too. The attorneys stress that changes in Maryland laws and regulations themselves can force an update. Tax laws change, those estate and inheritance tax rules can be tweaked by the legislature. Probate rules might change. Rules about powers of attorney or living wills could be updated. So you need to make sure your plan still works under the current rules, not the rules from 5 or 10 years ago. Staying updated keeps it effective and legally sound.
This really seems to tie everything back to why they emphasize working with a local Maryland firm like Haskell and Dyer. Why is that local knowledge so vital?
It connects directly to everything we've just discussed, especially those unique Maryland laws, the taxes, the specific probate rules, the requirements for documents. Creating an estate plan isn't like buying something off the shelf. It has to be tailored to work correctly within the specific legal system of your state.
So making sure the plan actually lines up with Maryland-specific rules is job number one.
Absolutely. A firm that works in Maryland day in and day out, that knows the nuances of Maryland's estate tax, its inheritance tax, the local court procedures in counties like Anne Arundel, Calvert, Charles, St. Mary's, and Prince George's, they can offer insights and strategies that are specifically designed to work best here. They understand the local landscape in a way that, frankly, a firm based somewhere else just wouldn't.
That makes a lot of sense. Getting that tailored local insight seems key.
It really is.
And just to mention, for folks listening in those southern Maryland counties who might be thinking about this now, the attorneys do offer a free consultation, which seems like a really good, no-pressure way to just start the conversation and see what's involved. Okay, so pulling this all together, what's the main takeaway for you, the listener?
I think it boils down to this. Estate planning isn't some luxury item. It's really a fundamental step for almost everyone. It's about getting that clarity for your wishes, protecting your hard-earned assets, gaining real peace of mind, and making things much more efficient and less painful for your family later on. It uses specific tools, like wills and trusts, tailored to you. And if you're in Maryland, you absolutely need advice that accounts for our state's unique tax laws and legal rules, which means finding local expertise is key. And remember, it's not a one-time task. It needs to be revisited as your life changes and as the laws change too.
Yeah, understanding all that really helps, I think. It moves estate planning from feeling like this huge, scary thing to something manageable, something that actually empowers you to shape your future and protect your legacy. So as a final thought to leave you with, kind of building on that blueprint idea we talked about. If your estate plan is the blueprint for the future building, the building that represents your legacy and your family's security, what happens to that building if the blueprint gets outdated? What if you do major renovations like life changes, marriage, kids, finances shifting, but you never update the plans? Or what if the fundamental building codes, those Maryland state laws change and your old blueprint doesn't comply anymore? What could that mean for the future you were trying to build? Something to think about.